You want to show him your feet?
Well, that'll be later. I'm wearing. I don't know. I'm wearing Birkenstocks today. Okay, they're very nice. They're very nice footwear, Chris.
I just did that for TJ.
I mean, I never wear open toe here.
Rich, you look like you're ready to part the Red Sea.
Great.
That's all I'm saying.
Terrific. You know what it's called? It's called fashion, you morons.
You walked in with them smelling like
Says the
patchouli.
guy that wears the same
How
clothes
dare
like
you? It's
almost
called
every day.
fashion. It's called fashion.
I know fashion.
Just because I'm branching out doesn't mean I'm leaving you behind, okay? You understand? You're all coming with me to Roku.
Rich,
We're good.
I'm not hating. You just take it down a notch. I'm not hating. Turn it back down to 7.
All right.
I just did that for TJ.
Thank you.
844-204-RICH is the
Rich
number to
came in
dial here
eating
on this
granola
program.
this morning.
We just hung out. We just hung out from John Lynch. We just hung up from John Lynch.
I bet Fowler wears Birkenstocks, so it's fine.
Fowler is a very, very fashionable man, okay? And he's having a hell of a week. And in the middle of his hell of a week, he decided to say, yes, I will call in the Rich Eisen Show.
That's
and
why we love him.
You morons have delayed me getting to him.
I know. He's on. He's waiting.
All right?
I'm sorry.
Hey, Rich.
He's one of my friends. He's one of my best friends from the worldwide leader in sports back in the day. And now he just finished calling an incredible match involving Serena Williams last night. And he's calling Notre Dame versus Audacy. I'm trying to give him the proper setup, and you've thrown me off my game. Chris Fowler here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, Chris? You there, Chris?
Despite my Boulder roots, I cannot pull off Birkenstocks.
Oh, upset.
So therefore I don't put them on. But listen, I'm sure they look good on you.
Wait a minute. That sounded legit. Like you really do think it looks good on me. Probably, right?
I said I'm sure they do. I can't see you at the moment.
Okay,
but
understood.
I'm sure you're pulling off the look. I'm not a sandals guy.
I'm not either.
Don't wear them on a plane. Do me a favor.
Oh, of course, no.
Flip-flops on a plane for guys is a pet peeve. Don't get me going on wearing flip-flops while flying.
Chris, Xander, who you've known for all 14 years of his life, the other day thought of putting on his sandals, open-toed shoes, going to Angel Stadium the other night. I'm like, absolutely not. No chance. We stopped him. I said, the toes must be closed if you're going to a baseball game. And he did, so we're all good.
Too many years in Manhattan, the idea of walking around.
That's true. I wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't take the train in it. I wasn't going to cab in it. But I just needed to just get in my car real fast to get here.
Okay.
All right. Can we...
Sound defensive. I'm gonna let you.
Chris Fowler here on the Rich Eisen. All right. I'm going to make the awkward but still necessary segue here. You have called many matches at the United States Open, and this is where does this rank? And I know they're just technically two first opening matches of this tournament, but the circumstances under which Serena Williams shows to this tournament and then wins the first two, where does this rank for you, Chris?
Well, unlike anything I've ever been a part of at a preliminary stage of any sports event, it's maybe if you get the right matchup in a final. For example, when Serena's been in there, when Djokovic was going for the Grand Slam a year ago, you get that electricity. It felt like a final and opening night, and that's unheard of. There was such tension, anxiety, people unsure whether or not Serena should even be playing. How is she going to look? And for 5 games, it looked pretty ugly. And then, obviously, she snapped back and turned it around. Wednesday, last night, was just a celebration. It was a whole different vibe. She came out. She answered some questions. The crowd wasn't nearly as anxious. And it was a performance that I'll never forget. I mean, you got to remember, she's a month from being 41. She's a mom. She's barely played in a year. She looked like all summer, like maybe she'd passed her expiration date. And you got to remember, this is Serena. So the regular rules don't apply, and she should never be doubted. But, Rich, that was amazing. I called it with Chrissy Everett and John McEnroe, 2 legends. They were able to frame sort of what we were seeing really well. And it was pretty staggering. Her level of play in the third set, after she got dusted off pretty good by Kontaveit in the second, you think, I don't know if she's got it physically for this last set. And from the first point of the set, new energy, hitting the ball big, and the crowd was just came unhinged.
It's funny you said this is Serena, because when Mary Jo Fernandez asked her afterwards, a legitimate question, are you surprising even yourself? She kind of gave her this look like, I am Serena, and it's just like, okay, like that was, she puffed up and she said what she said, and I can't wait to see where this goes. Where do you think this can go, Chris? What do you think?
She was 50-1 before the tournament to win the title. I don't think people realize that because they're used to seeing her there and assuming she's one of the top contenders. The odds makers made her the 23rd choice to win the women's title. More than half the field wasn't even born when she turned pro. So obviously it's an achievement we haven't seen, someone that age trying to compete. And if you saw the way she looked at Wimbledon, and then in the summer when she sometimes looked like she didn't want to be out there, she wasn't moving very well, didn't look inspired, you didn't think this was possible. I mean, even the seasoned pros who know what it's like to try to get back into shape, to raise your level physically, were shocked by what they saw. So now she goes in as a favorite in the next round against Ajla Tomljanovic, who's a very solid player and has a skill set that can trouble a lot of people. But I don't know that she's mentally ready to face what any opponent for Serena's got to face. And that's you can say, oh, I'm relaxed, I got nothing to lose, I'm going to enjoy the environment. No, you can't. That's not realistic when you get in the heat of battle. And Kontaveit, who's a very steady player, cracked late. She held up well for a while, but she cracked at the end. And I think that Serena goes in as a favorite on Friday. Sunday would be tricky. If it's Samsonov is a player that most people don't know about, but she's a Russian, very solid player. So it's going to get tougher. But if you can beat the number 2 player with that kind of performance in the third set, yeah, people are beginning to wonder what's possible here.
And then, of course, there's the New York crowd at the United States Open. And when they get behind one of the players, you're playing against them, too. And that's what's so special in many different ways about the U.S. Open, when there is a fan favorite, a clear fan favorite in front of the ash or the center court, if you will, crowd. I just remember in the used to be the Armstrong, right? Used to be the center court
right
there. And I remember when Jimmy Connors at the end of his career was making some magical late runs and fist pumping in the same way that Tiger Woods did from the crowd last night. It's just, there's nothing like it, man. And I imagine that's just going to keep building as long as Serena stays in this tournament, Chris Fowler.
Yeah, Agassi's matches, you're exactly right. The old days in Armstrong, Jimmy, John to some degree, but Agassi and Arthur Ashe Stadium, when it was clear the end was near for him, and this is beginning to feel like that. Pete Sampras, of course, went out, retired after winning the U.S. Open in his last match, but Pete, as great as he was, never commanded the electric crowd support that Serena does. I don't know where this is going. I think that it was interesting to see the atmosphere last night. They were beginning to cheer Kontaveit's faults, and they were beginning to boo electronic line calls, which can't be overturned. Serena raises one finger. Nope, stop it. And they just got quiet.
Love it.
The command that she has over the crowd. She didn't want any unsportsmanlike behavior by the crowd toward her opponent. She didn't tolerate that.
Amazing. Chris Fowler here on the Rich Eisen Show. So are you in New York now? Are you going to call that Friday, or you're heading off to?
No, I'm calling the Nadal's match tonight against Fanini, which is the nightcap, taking a nap, and then getting on a plane to Columbus. I mean, Notre Dame, Ohio State is a monster game. Very excited for that. It's the ABC opener. So do not want to miss that, even for tennis. I'll be watching Serena on Friday, hoping that she can get through one more so I can come back on Sunday and we can keep the story going. But no, I'm hyped for this football game. It's the odds makers say the Buckeyes are going to win in a blowout, but it's who knows. And it's Notre Dame, Ohio State in the same field on a campus, which is very cool. Yeah.
So walk me through, break down your Saturday gig for me with Notre Dame at the Ohio State. And
Buckeyes, as you know, had a bad taste in their mouth the way the last season ended. I mean, the big house meltdown there has colored the entire offseason. That's been the fuel for them. They did win the Rose Bowl in a shootout. I'm screening that game right now against Utah. Fun one to watch when they prevailed despite being shorthanded. But that didn't do much to lessen the pain of losing to Michigan, and that's driven them. And they've obviously got C.J. Stroud and Smith and Jigba and Travion Henderson. They've got kind of a triplets like the vintage Cowboys have that you rarely see in college football. And I think that the defense is going to be good enough because Ohio State could flirt with 50 points per game on offense this year. And it's a serious challenge for Notre Dame's defense, which has Al Golden coming in as the new defensive coordinator. They're a pretty experienced group, but they're going to have their hands full stopping Stroud and company. And I think that Notre Dame's chance is to try to score with Ohio State if they can. Shorten the game run the ball, but they're going to have to score points to have any chance to hang with them.
Well, and I spoke to Marcus Freeman a couple months ago. I was, talking to him about how interesting it is that his first game as a regular season head coach for Notre Dame is going to be against his alma mater in his old spot in the Horseshoe. Have you spoken to him about that? Because he didn't really want to talk much about it months ago. I wonder how he is now on the cusp of it. Chris.
Funny you should ask that, Rich. Well, he's the first guest of the podcast, season 5. So the Marcus Freeman episode happens to be up on the Fowler Who You Got.
Who You Got?
On all podcast platforms. Good timing for the promo there. Unintended, but I appreciate it.
All good.
We didn't speak a ton about the X's and O's. It's more about getting to know Freeman. His background's interesting. I covered him when he was an Ohio State linebacker. Really, really good player, and had his career, his brief attempt at the NFL cut short by an injury, and then got into coaching. And listen, he's an unusual hire, okay? 1 year at Notre Dame as the defensive coordinator, inherits the job when Brian Kelly leaves, and the psyche is wounded, and the players demand that he be given a chance, and they hire him. And he coached in the bowl game, which was a loss to Oklahoma State. But as you said, now the real tenure begins as a head coach with the toughest possible assignment. I think he's not shying away from predicting Notre Dame will win a national championship in the coming years. He's been pretty bold. I don't recall Kelly talking about that. He stepped out there. The players are talking about it. They're not paying attention to the fact that no one's giving him a chance. But Freeman has recruited extremely well. Whether or not this is a special team, remains to be seen. But yeah, he's a kind of guy. When you hear his background, you certainly root for him. Father of 6 kids. He and his wife are raising 6 kids. Well, he's taken on the massive responsibility at 36. There'll be a lot of eyes on him. He's tried to deflect it, as you do in that situation, but eager to see, how he navigates the adversity, because they'll face adversity on Saturday night for sure.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Chris. You know me. I don't know who to root for or against in this game. I'm going to be very conflicted this entire time. The two teams that I would love for it.
Are in the same camp on that one.
I mean, honestly, if there is a sinkhole that could open up and swallow both organizations, I don't know. I might obviously wonder and be concerned of their physical well-being, but other than that,
I'm going to hope that a sinkhole doesn't swallow me up and everybody else with it at the
That's
Ohio
true.
Stadium.
That's true. Because that is just a fascinating spot. What do you think, Chris Fowler, of the fact that I'm sitting in Big Ten country in Los Angeles? What do you think of that one, Chris?
Yeah, that broke when I was over in Europe, and I started getting a bunch of messages. I didn't know how to process it. You were in Italy. I was definitely out of the loop and off the grid, and trying to process that on a number of different levels. There's the football piece, which makes more sense than the other pieces. Obviously, as a Colorado graduate, I'm a little concerned about the rest of the Pac-12 and what that means going forward. To sit and whine about the erosion of traditions and talk about nostalgia is pointless in this sport. There's a lot of people who think the sport has totally lost its way, and that people who are allegedly trying to lead it have lost their way. I don't spend a ton of bandwidth on that because, I'm there to call the game that's in front of me. I do think it's intriguing. I mean, listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that USC going to the Big House or the Horseshoe or these Big Ten teams playing regular season games out at the Rose Bowl, the Coliseum. That's cool. That's intriguing to me. Makes no sense in the other sports besides football, but football dominates. It's about dollars. We know that. It's a couple of years before it's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and sound like a cranky old man about the traditions of the sport. It is what it is, and it's not going to change. It's going to accelerate.
Chris, I think you're going to wind up calling 3, if not 4, college football playoff games in a year during your career. I think that's going to happen. I think you're going to end up calling what's going to be the equivalent to the Super Bowl in college football. I think that's the way this is going. I've spoken to Greg Sankey. We've got a standing invitation to Mr. Warren of the Big Ten as well. I think.
Do you think we have a Super Bowl now, though? Wouldn't you call?
We do.
Playoff game? I mean, it's a smaller bracket.
That's what it is. But what the reason why I'm terming it that here is because we're going to have 2 conferences of about 16, if not 16, then maybe 20 or 24 teams each, and that's why you should be concerned for Colorado, because there is going to be a bunch of terrific programs like the ones that you've rooted for because you went there. You might not have a seat at the table. or they might be needing to come out of relegation to get into whatever conference. I really think that's the way this is going. It may take years for that to happen, but I think the worldwide leader will be at the forefront of it.
Whether it's 8 or 12 or 16. I mean that's the only question. It's going to be expanded at the end of this current cycle, which means there's a few more years of it. But that's inevitable. I hope you're right. I hope if it expands, we continue to have a dominant position. But I think you have to consider two things. One, are you just going to keep adding games on to the end of the season and another layer and another layer? It's 15 games for the two teams that are playing in the championship game now. If you expand that, what is it going to be, game 17? I mean, if you're a player, you damn sure better think about coming after some of that money and not being content with NIL. If you're going to expand the playoff, it means a lot more money. It means. Listen, we've seen, Rich, serious injuries at the end of the football season. That's inevitable. It's a part of the game. We get that. But you see, it feels to me like a disproportionate number of serious injuries, late in the season. And people who are experts in this would tell you, the wear and tear, the fatigue, the intensity of these games all contribute to that. And I have my concerns. I mean, if you want to eliminate a regular season game, if you want to eliminate the conference championship games and pare down that piece of it at the same time you expand the playoff, okay. That's a different equation. That makes more sense to me. If you're just going to add on games at the end of the season, another layer and another layer, and you're doing it for money under the veil of inclusion, which I think is a noble cause. Inclusion is great. Are you going to end up with any different 4 teams once you play it down to the semis than you have now? That's the question you have to answer, because this sport is more top-heavy than it's ever been. It's more top-heavy than any sport except maybe the English Premier League, and even that's opened up more. And the same teams are there all the time, and that's the problem. That's what's constricting the growth of the sport's popularity. It'll be cool to have more teams in playoff contention down the stretch, but if you go to an expanded format and you end up with Bama, Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, I mean, the same teams in the semis, what have you really accomplished? You're not changing who wins the championship. You're just throwing another layer of playoffs in so teams can say, hey, we made the playoff.
Maybe so. I don't know. And it's interesting you say that, players should want a piece of that money. And it's more than just the NIL. You're right. I mean, if you take a look at the annual television packages, the Big Ten package that just got sold is right next to Major League Baseball's on the annual, over $1 billion. That's professional sports. That's it. I mean, at some point you have to call it what it is or what it looks like. But in the meantime, though, I mean, games like Saturdays, I'm in. I am so in. I will be watching, and I can't wait to. Is it you and Herb Street as well?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And Holly Rowe. I mean, it's cool because you got that game. You got Oregon taking a challenge of playing in the Dogs' backyard in Atlanta. That's a really cool afternoon sort of special game. You got Utah and Florida, which is intriguing because a lot of people think Utah is a playoff team this year. And clearly the best in the Pac-12 again. So it's pretty damn good for an opening weekend. And I'm very cool that we get to have the game in Columbus in prime time.
Yeah, Florida State against Brian Kelly's new family. We got that one
on Sunday. That's a big weekend.
That's a good one. Okay, very good. I got that one in there. So Fowler, who you got? It's got Marcus Freeman as the first guest. Who else you got?
Johnny Mack coming up. We just taped it. John, we've been working on him a long time. It's not really about kind of like the best of tennis stuff. We talk a lot about his guitar playing, all these guys in bands that he knows jamming with Pearl Jam and the Eagles, and the whole history of all the personalities that gravitate toward the Johnny Mack experience and that he connects with is what we spend a lot of time talking about. Michael Simon, who's a buddy of mine, a chef, Iron Chef, and the Chew. He's week 2. So thank you for the plug. Of course, you know how fun it is to talk with different folks, and I learn something every single episode.
Fowler, who you got? Where all podcasts can be acquired. All right, so it's Nadal tonight, then a flight, then a game of Notre Dame and Ohio State, and potentially Serena on Sunday. If she wins, you go back. You're out. You go.
I like the way I'm going to save the Open for throughout week 2. Yeah, I don't do the second college football week because I love to stay and do all of the semis and the finals. So I like the way you laid that out. It gets me. That's exciting.
It is, man. It's a hell of a week. It's like that's That's why you lift all them scripts. You know, I mean, like that's it. This is great. I can't wait.
When you have your two favorite sports collide, for 2 weeks, and it is in the city where you've lived a long time, and as you talked about the energy. I mean, I'd be an idiot to let 1 minute of this go by without being grateful and present and just appreciative.
You're the man, and you're great at it too, Chris. Best to Jennifer. You be well, sir. You take care.
Attitude. Thanks, Rick.
There you go. There's Chris Fowler, everybody. At CB Fowler on Twitter. I follow him. You should as well. And Fowler, who you got? Marcus Freeman, then John McEnroe.